Good day, fellow deal makers. Welcome to the Deal Scout. Josh here, your host, having conversations with deal makers on today's show, Mr. Mario. Mario, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Josh. Really excited to be on this. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm a fan of you too, man. So with what you're doing in the world of mobile homes and real estate and such like that, why don't you kind of let us in on the inside? What are you working on?
Yeah. So we are buying mobile home parks, pretty much looking nationally. We own communities in Florida, Georgia, and Minnesota currently. We do own a little bit of self-storage as well in Florida and Texas, but our primary focus is mobile home parks and fully integrated. We own a property management company. We're dealers, all that. And we also own a small brokerage as well, strictly for use for acquisitions for communities for us.
Okay. So let's go back kind of like, how did you get in this game, and where are you guys located, by the way?
We're in Naples, Florida. So not too far from you, actually. Sounds like you're in Ocala, which is kind of cool. We need to get together sometime.
Right around the block. Yeah. So we'll hang out and we'll go tackle some communities together.
Yeah. And how did I get into it? So interesting, I started out in a marketing business straight out of high school. I never went to college, and a few years into that, the company actually filed bankruptcy, and we were contracted by them. So that was pretty much a cutoff on our income source. And so I started a real estate brokerage and a mortgage company with a friend that was in that marketing business with me, and it was going well. And around 2008, we started getting into some distressed sales, and we were doing a lot of short sales and foreclosure type work, and went to my dad, who had a lot of construction experience, both residential and commercial, and said, man, I'm brokering all these deals. I'm helping these other investors buy these homes and helping them sell them. Why don't we just go start buying these? You handle the construction aspect, I'll handle the acquisition and disposition, and the rest is history. And that's what we did. So ultimately we shut down the brokerage, and my dad and I started the investment company, started buying homes throughout Minnesota, and then had the opportunity in around 2009 to start buying homes in Florida. A longtime friend of mine had an opportunity to buy 21 homes out of bankruptcy from a builder. And he said, hey, do you want to get in on this deal with me? He knew what we were doing in Minnesota, and got down here and ran around Lehigh Acres and Cape Coral a little while, and realized, man, there's just blood in the streets everywhere. And to an investor, that's awesome. It was something that we'd never seen before. And so we started buying in Florida, and that's how we got down here. And in 2015, kind of wanted to get out of the single family transactional business. It's a trading business. You're constantly looking for product to, add value and sell, and it's a job. So 2015, a lot of the distress assets were already gone, and we said, let's get into some buy and hold larger commercial assets. And we're looking at apartments, and apartments were attractive to us for, all the reasons everybody knows, except for the price. We were struggling with the price in 2015, believe it or not, and thought we'd kind of missed the window. And somebody, a good friend of mine who was a banker, brought an opportunity to me and said, look, I got this other bank that's selling this debt, and it's a non-performing loan on a mobile home park. I know you're looking for apartments, but I know you've bought loans before. Is this something you're interested in? Looked at it, kind of measured it up, went, all right, this looks kind of like an apartment, functions a little bit like an apartment. We love the note business. So we ended up buying that non-performing loan from the bank, foreclosed on it, took it back, and that was a sweet deal. But from then on, we just focused on mobile home parks with a little touch of self-storage, and rest is history.
So you were in Minnesota when you were doing all these deals?
We were in Minnesota till about 2011. So yeah, we were buying homes in Florida from 2009 to 2011. And then I moved down after I got married, just because I love sunshine and palm trees.
Yeah. Welcome to Florida, the great country of Florida. We love it here.
Yeah.
All right. So when you were presented with this deal from the bank, and they said, hey, we got a deal, we want you to take a look at it. We know you guys are looking at apartments, and you guys have flipped a bunch of houses. Here's a mobile home park. Like, what's the first thing that came through your head?
What the heck is this? I mean, I'd heard of mobile home parks, but yeah, my thought of them was, not real high, especially when you're looking at B and C class apartments. C is not real pretty, but they're still a lot prettier than most mobile home parks. So it was a little bit of a shock, but when I did some quick homework on how they operate, the lot rent model and all of that, I loved it. And just the fact that our basis in the deal was going to be so low, it kind of mitigated a lot of the risk. It was a very complex deal, a lot more hair on it than just buying the loan. But yeah, it intrigued us enough to go, wait a minute, there might be something here. And we like niche property types, and we're kind of looking for things that are in inefficient markets and unsophisticated industries, and that fit it. So apartments weren't quite there, but we felt like we could buy, and we love apartments still. We'll buy some as soon as we feel like we can make some money on them. But it was just a very unique niche kind of underground market that we hadn't seen before.
Yeah, super interesting. So you pulled the trigger. What was the year or the time frame when they handed you over the keys, metaphorically?
Say that one more time.
Yeah, around what year was where the bank handed you over the note? They handed you the keys and they said, "This park is now yours, gentlemen."
Yeah. So I want to say it was very end of 2014. We foreclosed on it. They were mid foreclosure already, so they had already started the process. In Florida is a judicial state, so you got to sue, to foreclose, and so they had already started that. But yeah, it was early 2015 that we actually got the note. Probably March, April, we got the title, and yeah, it was.
So one person's failure became an opportunity to you guys, or one group's failure, but for whatever reason. Okay. Mm-hmm. But what did you do with this property? Did you turn it around? Was it a success story? Do you still have it? What happened with this property?
This was a pretty unique deal. So everybody was approaching it. There were other offers on it. There was other interest in it, but everybody was going about it trying to buy it as a short sale. The seller owned it for, their loan on it was over $4 million. And everybody's going in the front door. They were trying to buy it, negotiate down the loan, which, they could get the loan down pretty low until they found out that there was over $1 million in code enforcement liens on it. And that kind of scared everybody off. And so by us, we tied up the note. We put it under contract to buy the loan. And then we went to the county. We brought in a consultant that we knew that had a lot of construction experience and contracts with the with the county, and brought them to the table with us. We negotiated some terms with the county. This is what we're going to be doing. This is what you want. This is what we want. How do we do this to where when we wipe out all your liens through foreclosure, you don't just come back in and start leaning up the property and giving us a hard time? How can we work together on this? So then we got some terms in writing with the county. Then we bought the loan. And so it was a very complex deal. It wasn't easy. And they wanted it closed. I mean, the county and the commissioner wanted it closed. And so there was a lot of targets on the property. That being said, once we got the property back, we actually negotiated with the borrower. He had a large personal guarantee on it. So there was some interesting negotiations going on with him that helped lower our basis in the deal after we had gotten the foreclosure done. And then from a value add standpoint, we put in curbing in part of the park. We did new signage, landscaping. A lot of it, we put in a tall fence, like a decorative fence at the front, which a lot of this was to appease the county, make everybody happy, because we were 2 parcels over from the the county offices. So the courthouse was right there. So every day they were driving by it and seeing it. Brought in some homes, did some paving work, did some seal coating in the areas that weren't, created new parking spaces that weren't there before, created some new green spaces. And operationally, we changed utility bill backs. So we build back water, sewer at the property.
What do you mean by bill back?
So when we bought the property, the park was paying the water and the sewer and the trash and all the utilities, right? What we did was we went to the residents and said, hey, you're now responsible for your usage. So we're going to take this and we're going to bill back your usage to you. So now you're responsible, and gave them the opportunity to control what they paid for utilities going forward. That reduced our expenses by about $70,000 right off the bat. And anybody who talks about how, that's basically a rent increase, it essentially is, but it also gives the residents some responsibility, and it reduces usage, which is good for conservation. So there's a lot of benefits to that. And
Yeah.
it added massive value. I mean, it adds $70,000 to the bottom line by billing back a utility. You can, that was a big value add to the property when you put that on a cap rate.
Yeah. And the man hours it takes to process all those payments, to knock on doors, to the fees, the, hey, you didn't, pay your water bill this month, or whatever the case may be, or this guy's, guy or gal's watering, their lawn in the middle of a rainstorm. So you're paying for that, right?
Washing their cars.
Right. It's like, it's raining. What are you doing?
Kids are doing a car wash party out front, trying to make money off of our water bill.
Right. Exactly. So I think that's smart. Now, did you add any revenue producing things? So, you passed over the responsibilities of utilities to the clientele there. Awesome idea. Did you guys do any storage on that property, or laundromats, or anything like that added revenue?
Great question. We had a kind of a pole barn on the property that had a tenant in it that had been renting it for a long time. And we did raise his rent. We considered bringing in a laundry room, but we surveyed all the tenants a couple times, and every time there was just no interest, because they'd already put in laundry units in their units. Of course, when water's free, everybody wants that. So that being said, no, we didn't do laundry, but we considered it multiple times. Really, the property was pretty dense. So to add additional storage and things like that, no, what we did do is we put picnic tables in this green space. It was too small to put any buildings or to bring in more homes. And we were at our full capacity once we brought in, filled the existing lots just on what we were permitted for. So we did put picnic tables out, which created kind of a fun area for families to enjoy. And the landscaping alone kind of made it just feel more friendly. But no, we didn't add any of those things. We do that at some of our parks.
Yeah.
It just kind of depends on what's available and what the demand is.
So that was the first, mobile home acquisition that you guys did. How many doors do you guys have now, or, how many units, or how many parks, give us an idea of where you guys are at now.
Yes, we have 10 communities across 3 states, 800 lots approximately. We sold that community. We're typically not sellers. We're buyers. We're long-term 10+ year hold investors, but a family office out of New York came to us and said, hey, we want this one, and their price backed that up. And we just said, hey, look, if you want it, well, at that price, you could have it. And so we sold it. But that's the only community that we've sold so far. But yeah, about 800 lots today, and actively seeking more deals.
Got it. So what is your role in this organization, and what you guys are doing? What does a day-to-day, activity look like for Mario?
What I love doing the most is the acquisitions. I love deal making. So this, I love this show because that's all you guys talk about is making deals, right? Yeah. But I prefer the acquisition side and the capital side. What my time has gotten pulled into is a little bit more the operational. We have someone that runs our property management company, but that still does require some effort. But really right now I've brought on a few acquisition managers, and I'm hoping that they can do a lot of the heavy lifting, and I can just do the fun part of the acquisitions, negotiate and run around a property and watch people do due diligence. At this point, I am still involved in a lot of that. And even on the financing side, I do get involved on some of that as well.
Got it. Now let's talk about acquisitions, since you love it so much, right? So what are some acquisition methods? You mentioned a bank reached out to you and said, hey, non-performing note, do you guys want it? Right. So a bank as a source. What other sources have you come across for deal flow for acquisitions?
It's a really good question. A lot of times people say, how do I find mobile home parks? Well, it's really the same way you find every other piece of real estate. And the recommended way is all of them, because if you're only marketing in one way, the chances are you're probably not going to find a deal that way. You need to be spreading yourself pretty wide and marketing widely. Let me give you a few examples of how we've bought parks. So we've bought parks, this unique way. We bought a loan. We've bought through brokers, but not a whole lot of MHP brokers. Typically, they will set the price a bit high, set the expectations for the seller too high to where it doesn't make any financial sense for us to buy it. But we have bought through residential brokers and other commercial brokers that maybe aren't in the space. That's where we found some of the best deals, and they're knowledgeable enough they understand commercial real estate maybe, but they're not trying to set expectations. They're really just trying to bring us to the table and get the deal done. And so that's worked really well. Direct mail has worked. We've bought some things that way, letters, postcards. Sometimes when they're very direct and we're strategically targeting a property and we send them a very specific letter, not these kind of, very vague postcards, but some direct mail. Cold calling for sure. We've bought multiple properties off of cold calling, directly contacting the owner. And it's not usually we're interested in buying your property. Will you sell it to us? Sure, I'll sell it to you. What price? Well, at a 10 cap. Okay, great. We'll take it. It doesn't work like that. It's usually a very slow relationship building process where they may say, I'm not interested in selling today, but give me a call back in the future and let's keep in touch. And then we follow up. And then when something changes, then they're ready to sell and they already know us. And we've maybe even added some value where we've given them some operational advice or some referrals for vendors. And we've genuinely tried to help them. And then later on, they know us and they're comfortable selling to us. Another way would be buying assignments. So we have bought multiple properties. I want to say 3 now on assignment from wholesalers. And that's been a great business model because it allows people who were looking at the deal, got it under contract, figured out it was either, for whatever reason wasn't going to work, or they strategically got it under contract with the intention of selling it. And we were able to come in and take it over and close on it. And we really like that because I think it creates opportunity for people who are outsourcing deals. It allows them to make some really good money and saves us the effort of having to find the deal.
Right. So so I love this aspect because on assignments and buying contracts, right? Like I've made some good money, locking up a deal and then selling it to an investor as a part of the deal ecosystem. Kind of like walk us through the how to best leverage a wholesaler, how to best partner with a wholesaler to get a deal done.
Well, I think the first step is to get to know a bunch of people who are looking to wholesale contracts, right? And just surfing Facebook and other social media sites, there's a lot of people who are just finding properties, maybe not even deals, and they're just trying to advertise it and get a fee. And I think people need to be aware of real estate license laws, and they're just advertising properties, trying to get fees. And I think being able to discern who's really out there that has that understands what they're doing, have a legitimate contract or have an interest in a property that they can sell. That's step one, because you can waste a lot of time with people who are in some crazy daisy chain that don't even have, the seller doesn't even know they're marketing their property in some cases. And so we've kind of talked internally within our acquisition team of, look, we need to verify that this person actually has an equitable interest in the property and that they're bringing us a legitimate deal before we spend any real time on it. So that's number one. Don't waste time with people who are just putting out junk. Secondly, I think the best way to network and find people who are wholesaling properties is to be well networked in the industry, because a lot of times what happens is you get someone who has the intention of buying a property and they get it under contract, and very quickly they realize this is not for me, this property doesn't work. And they go, well, let me put this out to this group that I'm in, or, this, let's call it a Facebook group around mobile home parks. They'll put it out there. Hey, I've got this deal. And if you're involved in larger groups, you can sometimes source those deals that way. And then just knowing a lot of people, if they know what you're buying, they know that you're a legitimate buyer, have the capacity to close on it. They're going to probably bring it to you. I get a lot of deals just being messaged to me every day from social media and my YouTube channel and stuff. People will bring me deals. And so just being out there. So that's how to meet them. From there, the mechanics of it, I think the key is to get as much information as quickly as possible, especially the timelines. A lot of times people put things under contract and they wait, which creates this, sense of urgency in that due diligence period. And they might have a 30 to 45 day due diligence period and they've waited 20 days to put it out there. Well, crap, now I've only got, 25 days to get what I've got to get done. So I think determining the timelines early on and knowing that it's realistic. And if it's not realistic to get it done in those timelines based on the due diligence that's been done, can we get an extension on this? Can we work with the seller? Is the seller negotiable? When you tell them that you've sold this contract and there's a little bit time needed, but there's a very sophisticated and experienced buyer at the table, will they work with us? And so gauging that, because nothing worse than taking over a contract and having too short of a wick, and all of a sudden now you're fighting to get enough time to finish what you need to get done.
Yeah. Yeah. With that in mind, a wholesaler will lock it up. The basic wholesaling business model is you find a cool property, you lock it up, right? You say, hey, me and my investors, my group, we're looking to buy these properties. Investors sent me on the hunt. This is something we were interested in. And then, in the contract, it says assignability, right? So then you go and you're shopping this deal around to a bunch of people, right? Investors and acquisition people, and you're shopping the deal around. What some people make the mistake in is they try, a wholesaler will try to maybe step out of their experience level, and they'll try to do the deal themselves, right? And that's okay, right? You always need to learn and grow, but then they run out of time, and then they're scurrying because they've invested a lot of time, energy, and money, and then they go to acquisition. So for all the wholesalers out there doing this, like, let's chat with you on the show, like come in and share your model and method. But what I find works really well is as soon as I lock up a deal, I start communicating and syndicating it out as soon as I have a deal on the table with people like Mario, right? Like, hey, I got something. I might try to do it myself, but do you want to take a look at it? Maybe we'll JV it together. I'll build my basis on, your knowledge, your experience, and we could, do it together. Right. So that's a tip and trick for all you wholesalers out there in the business world. All right, back to you, Mario. This is your show.
Yeah, right. The earlier you can start pitching it to your potential assignees, the better. The other thing that I would say is if you've got a couple strategic relationships with guys or girls that can perform, they understand the business really well, and you trust them, I would recommend reaching out to them early on in that process. Again, if there's trust, and say, look, I've got this deal. I know this is your space. This maybe isn't my space. What kind of timelines do you need on due diligence? What do you see wrong with this problem? Is my pricing crazy? And I have few people that'll call me regularly and say, hey, I'm looking at this deal. Here's the address, just because we know each other and, there's trust there. And they'll basically walk through the deal, and I'll say, these are the 3 things you need to find out from the seller. Get it tied up. Let me know when you got it tied up, and we'll see what we can work out. But that price seems relatively realistic. And, these are the things you're forgetting about, just because it's maybe not their expertise. But I also want to make sure that they're not creating a contract with terms that aren't good on my behalf. So I would highly recommend, if you've got a couple trusted relationships like that early on, make sure that your terms are doable. If especially if you're wholesaling residential a lot and you're typically closing in 30 days or, 5 to 7 day inspection period, things like that, you want to talk to someone who knows what it's going to take to get their head around a deal, so that your timelines are realistic, because there's nothing worse than being under the gun on a deal and the seller's already going, what's this assignment thing you're telling me about? Now you're asking for more time. So it's just really important having terms going in. Another thing is, your earnest money and some of the other terms of the deals, what expenses should be paid by each party is going to be different on residential versus commercial. So if this isn't your area of expertise, get some guidance. And even if you don't tell them the address, it's still a good way to make sure that you tie it up in the right way up front.
Yeah. So on buying contracts and assigning contracts, the benefit is sometimes as a deal maker, I love deals, right? Like I love God, my family in deals, right? Throw in a few other people, man, my world's beautiful. But I like deals. And sometimes I get in deals that I'm over my head, right? I can't know everything and I can't. So like instead of I've invested time in due diligence, I've invested my team's resources and time and money, and I've driven the property 1,000 times. Instead of just killing the deal and just going, hey, we're not interested, we're backing out, you can take that asset, right? Because you still have a contract, and you can go to other people and say, hey, I have this contract, maybe not a fit for me, happy to assign it out for a small fee, covers my cost, maybe even make a little bit of a return on it. And that's a beautiful thing, man. Like I love it when that happens. Like are there any concerns you have other than, timeline and maybe missed expectations on assignments?
I mean, other than price, not really. I again, earlier on, the better. I know a guy who just did an assignment where he paid somebody $165,000 for the contract. And I would say that if you're assigning a contract, figure your assignment fee into the deal where it makes sense. If your assignment fee is $300,000 and it's already a little bit of a tight deal, recognize that your assignment fee is going to put the buyer over the edge. So that's why, number one, going in at a good price and maybe getting some guidance going in helps, but also being greedy on a deal is probably going to get you $0 versus making something that is fair is going to be a good relationship builder, and you can sell more contracts to those guys later. But yeah, just don't gouge the deal to where it doesn't make sense to the end buyer. Keep in mind, the end buyer is likely going to buy that property and own it for the long haul, and they've got a lot more risk than you do going in. So make your money, make it a fair deal for everybody.
Yeah, because here's the thing is you've bought 10 properties, 10 mobile home parks, right? So if I found a very good way of, getting in on mobile home deals as a wholesaler, right? You might buy multiple properties from me. So I should probably create a fair and good relationship where I send you a deal, meets all your criteria, and you go, hell yeah, let's do this, right?
Yeah, the guys who have sold us contracts in the past, I get messages and calls from them regularly because they're trying to bring me more deals. It was a smooth transaction. They enjoyed it. They made a lot of money and they want to do more business together. It's a lot easier to have maybe 2 to 3 buyers of contracts than to have to send it out to a big pool and have to weed through everybody and see who's serious and who can handle and who can actually perform on every deal. It's just a lot more work, where if you've got that 1 to 2 people that you can just keep throwing deals to when it's their property type, it's very efficient.
Yeah. So I got into real estate pretty early. Like you, I grew up on a construction site. My dad was in construction, and I made the when I became a realtor early on, or a real estate agent early on, I made the mistake of I went out and I started listing grandmother's property, right? Like grandmother's mobile home park in the forest, 45-minute drive for a $30,000 property. Because when you're beginning, you take everything.
Everything's money, right?
Everything's money. But then one day I saw a sign on the side of the road that says we buy houses cash. So I did one deal with grandma and I made a $300 commission, or less than that, because it was ridiculous. And I lost money on that deal and just in gas. But then I found an investor who bought multiple properties. And then with that one investor, I sold probably 40 properties to. The value of that lifetime customer was in comparison. So with buying contracts and work with group like yours, an acquisition group, you guys are buying multiple stuff, looking at, mobile home parks, self-storage, right? Their relationship could be so much more valuable than just hunting a deal, killing the deal, flipping the deal, right? What does, as we're talking of acquisitions, that's your favorite part of it. You love the acquisitions and capital. Let's talk the capital side of the thing. Like how does a group like yours work with investors?
Yeah, we've got, we're kind of unique and blessed. We've got a really good a small group of capital partners, and we're the GP in every deal that we do for the most part. And our limited partners typically are you can cut this. Our capital partners are LPs. They invest in our Reg D 506C offerings. And we've just got really scalable partners where we haven't had to go out and find new capital, new investors for a while. And we've just got a great relationship. There's a lot of trust there, and it's typically pretty loose. It's a phone call and maybe an email with some details on it, but there's enough trust there. We've done enough business. They've invested millions of dollars with us to where it's just a great working relationship. And I would say anybody who's looking to go out and raise capital to do deals, often having less people involved is better. It's an entirely separate business, the capital side, and because we've got reporting and we've got other things that we've got to do, and it's a big responsibility. You're taking on other people's money, and it's important that you treat that money with the respect that it deserves. And so it's a big responsibility, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of time away from finding deals. So what we learned early on is if we can have a few very scalable partners that can invest long term with us and do a lot of deals with us, then we can focus on what we're really good at, and that's finding deals, managing and turning around property, and making great returns. And so that's what we've done, and it frees us up from having to do those capital campaigns and the capital raising campaigns. At some point we may have to do it, but at this point we're thankful we don't have to.
That's cool. Mario, what does the future look like for you? Like you and I, we get to go back to the future, right? In the DeLorean, and we're looking at your life 20 years from now. How old will you be 20 years from now?
I'll be 57.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we're sitting there. I'll be almost 60. So I'm a little bit older than you, but we get to have a conversation with ourselves in the future. What does that look like? Where are you at? What does your life look like ideally?
Man, so should we talk in the talk like we're talking in the past what we did?
Yeah,
just for fun?
Yeah.
All
Let's
right.
do it.
So
role play.
Over the last 20 years, we built a sizable portfolio. We took advantage of the consolidation of the manufactured housing industry. We bought up a good amount of market share, and we'll throw out a number and say we've owning 50 plus communities. And on top of that, we've found other unique property types that were niche and built portfolios around those property types as well. At this point, we're cash flowing strong and probably going to pass on a large portion of the assets to, my heirs. But until then, we'll keep the doors open for sale opportunities, maybe from larger operator that wants to buy us out.
What does a day-to-day look like for us 20 years from now? Like you get to choose whatever kind of work, we've made our money. Now we're just doing work because it's fun. What kind of work will you be doing 20 years from now?
Man, you did not prep me for this question.
Yeah, I threw you on the spot.
I didn't get this in the pre list of questions. I think I'm doing deals, and the part of the deals that I really enjoy, I'm involved in the negotiating and the fun part of it, and everything else is pretty much run by experts in their realm, and just having fun with it, traveling and enjoying life, but still involved enough in the deals to get the rush. I mean, I'm a deal junkie just like you, and so I love the ups and the downs. Sometimes the downs are rough and the ups are euphoric, but that's why we do this, right? It's the money's cool, but the roller coaster ride is the fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm raising up my kids. We're playing Monopoly right now. They're 8, 4, and 1. So we're playing Monopoly. I'm preparing it. So 20 years from now, we're going to put, my kids and the kids to work, and they're going to run the due diligence and all the things that I don't like to do. And you and I will just be deal making.
That's right.
Taking down properties.
In the beginning, they're the cheapest labor, but in the end, they're the most expensive labor.
That's right.
They're taking ownership. I don't have kids yet, but I hope that someday if I have kids that I can, whether they want to work in the business with me or not, I hope they would, but that I can instill some values like that in them where they really appreciate it and they can do whatever they're going to do. But hopefully take on the portfolios and take it to the next level and look at me like, man, what was he doing? He was slacking,
That's right. They take it to a whole
Show
new
me up.
level.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Exactly.
So, all right. What question do you wish someone would ask you? Like you've been interviewed a bunch, you have your own YouTube channel. Like what question it could be business, it could be personal. Like what question do you wish someone would ask you?
Man, I think let me rephrase that.
Okay.
What is the one thing that I wish I would have known going into, especially the commercial real estate world? I wish I would have realized that I could partner up in JV with people and do what I'm really good at versus do everything. And,
Yes.
you know, we talk about being deal junkies and we love the deal side of it, the negotiating and the sourcing side. I'm not an operations person. Can I do it? Sure. Am I okay at it? Yeah, I'm okay at it. But I catch myself really getting frustrated and stressed out when I'm in that day-to-day ops side of things, because it's just not me. And when you realize what you're good at and what you enjoy, if you can team up with other people who are good at the things that you're not, you can scale so much faster and it's a lot more fun. I mean, thankfully today I've got a really great team of people, and we brought on people who are better at the things that they do than I am, but it took a while. And I feel like there was a bit of a plateau there where in the process you get to, so you scale and then you get to a point like, wow, I just created a big mess. I've got all this work that I've got to do, and I can't go and source more deals because I'm so busy managing what I've acquired, right? So then you go, all right, well, how do I systemize this? And then how do I bring on people to take on the parts that maybe I'm not the best at? And I wish I would have either partnered with folks early on and maybe never even gotten into the daily operations side and just focused on deals or and raising capital, or I would have thought about that early on and maybe brought on some key players, which is hard in the beginning because it's very capital intense to hire people. But I wish I would have maybe done that a little bit earlier, because I think the scaling up would have been even more consistent versus hitting that plateau and then figuring it all out so that you can take that next step, you know?
Right.
And if you're getting started, don't feel like you have to be that expert in every area. We've built up a very, we've built up the management company, we've built up the dealership, we've brought on all these people, but I just team up with somebody who's already got that infrastructure in place and do the part that you want. Or maybe you are the operations person, or maybe you are the capital person. Do what you're good at and just team up with people who are better at the other things. You'll grow so much faster and have a lot less stress in life.
Yeah. So I love that piece of advice, because when I look at my day-to-day, operations, like I love the deal side of it. I love connecting with people. I love making a deal happen. Like it like lights me up. Like I feel like the guy who ran the 4-minute mile. I feel the glory of God when I do deals. But I almost jumped out of the window the other day because I was reading SEC filings and paperwork and such like that. My partner had to talk me off the ledge because I was like, "This is terrible." He's like, "Let me take it. Get away from that crap." Right. So it's finding your sweet spot. And you've done that really well with your niche of business too, right? So, what advice? All right. So we went to the future. Now we could go backwards, and you get 30 seconds with 18-year-old Mario. You get 30 seconds. You could pass off one piece of advice. You can't say buy Google, buy Bitcoin. You can't do anything, any crap like that.
That's a cop out.
It's a cop out. But you could give one piece of life advice to a younger Mario. What would it be?
Man, I would encourage myself to look at long-term investing earlier on. Everybody gets excited about the big wins on the trades, the short-term trades, the flipping homes. I mean, I did it for a long time. So and it's okay. It's a good way to create cash flow and build up, some capital to invest. But I think earlier on, I don't want to say I wish, but I would recommend somebody looks at long-term investing and going big faster. And because what happens is you spend years of trading. Okay. And if you don't take that capital and invest it into something that's going to grow and create passive cash flow, at the end, you go, well, crap, I still need to work. And so I would say early on, look to build cash streams of cash flow. And if it's in real estate or anything else, buying businesses, right? I mean, your show is great because you talk to people who buy businesses and do all kinds of different types of investing and do all types of deals. I would look at cash flow and I would look at going bigger faster. A lot of times people say, I want to start out small and I want to learn it and scale up. The problem with starting small and buying either small businesses or small real estate is that they're a lot more susceptible to error. You know, one mistake or a few tenants move out, you feel that so much more than a larger deal. You know, on our smallest properties, you have a large plumbing break, you feel that in your cash flow. The larger you go, it's not that it takes any more work. It's the same amount of work for the small deal versus the large deal. Go bigger, faster, and if you don't have the capital, you know, team up with people who can either raise it or have it.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I heard someone, I forgot who, it might have been my partner. We were talking about some small deals versus big deals. And he says, you know, a small deal is just a squirrel's fart away from the, you know, the thing falling apart. And it's so true that, you know, with a big deal, there's room for error. There's a little bit of room. Yes, it might be a little bit more expensive,
Sure.
a little bit more risky in terms of like dollar value, but the risk is spread out over 80 doors or 80 properties within the property, right? So great piece of advice. Mario, if we went through your phone right now and we looked for the song that you play the most, what would be the song that you play the most in your phone or on your computer?
Oh man, twofold. Way
Go for it.
FM. I enjoy Christian rock a lot. And my wife and I, when you get in the car, that's what we're listening to. But that's more just because that's what we enjoy. I think if I was underwriting a deal, I'm probably listening to some trance or something like that. Get in the zone.
Get in the zone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you able, when you're reading through a document or a contract, are you able to listen to music with words, or do you have to go instrumental?
No.
Me too.
Yeah. It's funny because growing up, I never had any interest in instrumental or even classical. It was always, you know, all the good stuff, right? But as I've gotten older, I've gotten more into the smooth, relaxing, you know, instrumental type music, non-vocals, because it helps me just think better. And so I can't read with any
I can't
vocals.
either. I can't either. My brother-in-law can literally do work while listening to a book on tape or watching a movie.
Oh, geez. Genius level.
Well, I won't tell him that because that'll get to his head, but
ego.
his ego will blow up. All right. Last question. What does a perfect deal look like? And if someone's in the audience with that deal, how do they connect with you?
Yeah, thanks. Really, if it's a mobile home park, we're buying nationally, 80 plus occupied lots. If it's in a market we already own in, maybe down to 50 plus occupied lots. Ideally resident owned homes, but we'll buy communities with park owned homes, and ideally city utilities, but we'll buy private utilities if we need to. So I think the main metric to look at, if you wanted to work with us, either partner with us on a deal or assign a contract to us or broker us a deal, would be, does that have 50 to 80 occupied lots? And that's going to be kind of the initial threshold. If it's self-storage, I mean, there's 50,000 plus square feet, rentable square feet. But again, our expertise is definitely going to be the manufactured housing industry.
All right. So give your plug. Where can people find you? Could they follow you on YouTube and LinkedIn? Give us just like a good starting point for people to connect with you.
Yeah. So I'm on all the socials, but and let me put a little twist on that.
Sure.
The best way to probably connect with me is maybe Facebook or LinkedIn, but I would recommend those who are looking to learn more about the mobile home park world and investing in it is two different places, and they're both free. MarioDattiloShow.com. That's my YouTube channel. Subscribe to that. I'm putting out a lot of very tangible content that you can use and apply, a lot of entry level, but also some more sophisticated aspects to the industry there. And then also mhptribe.com. There's a Facebook group for that, MHP Tribe group on Facebook. It's a really good platform to network with other people who are buying and own mobile home parks. It's free. There's just a crazy amount of content there. And so those are the two places that I would go to learn about the industry, but connect with me on any of the socials. I'd love to do some deals with everybody.
Sweet. So for the listeners out there, as always, reach out to our guests, say thank you for being on the show, find a way to do a deal with them. So if you're sitting on one of these contracts or you're sitting on a mobile home park and you're like, I'd like to have Mario take a look at it, all his contact info will be in the show notes. So if you're driving, be safe, but then stop, hit the button, connect with Mario, do a deal together. And if you're working on a deal, want to talk about a deal, maybe get you guys on the show. So head on over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, and maybe have you on the next show as a guest. Till then, talk to you guys on the next episode. See ya.
Thanks, Josh.